G'day everyone, Jason Nunn, Fisherman's Warehouse Marine, Sweet Street at Warners Bay, your Newcastle Honda Marine dealer. And Thursday, have a look at it, what a glamour day. And of course, a little bit of shower activity and a southerly coming in tomorrow. They're sort of saying around about 15 knots with some coastal showers. And then we have variable winds Saturday, Sunday. So a real northwest, southeast, southwest, it's all just going to be all around, but it doesn't look too intense. It's, look, maybe 10 or 12 knots at very best, so looking really good for the weekend, once we get through tomorrow, of course. And then northerly winds predominantly Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so, and again, possibly coastal showers. Last weekend of the school holidays coming through, and I had a bit of a look at the sea surface charts just to get an idea of what's happening out wide. And there's about a 2-degree temp break just south of the southern canyons at the moment. So we've still got that downhill current out and around about 800 to 1,000 fathoms, still coming through quite strong actually. I had a look at then, it says it's around about 3 knots, 21.7. But back in and around about say 400 fathoms or thereabouts, southerns drops away and it's 19.7 and only under a knot of current. So there's a really nice temp break there. A lot of yellowfin south now, down at Nowra, south, obviously some really good fish. I've seen McCallum's Tackle World actually just do a post then. A lot of yellowfin down that way and some big fish, a lot of 40 kilo fish and some better fish, 50, 60 kilos. So way down south coast, a lot more fish. So we just got to wait for that next pulse, that next upwelling to come through. There's one out wider and there's a little bit one to the sort of northeast. So we just got to work on that maybe over the next few weeks. Haven't heard of any bluefin yet coming up this far, but I definitely know there's still a few south of Browns for those that basically want to travel. Now, intel on the farm, just got some really good reports just only moments ago. A lot of kings down on the Texas guys, some really nice fish, metre plus stuff, but sharks are the problem. The boys that I just spoke to, they got a really good text, lost half a dozen big kings to sharks. So that can sometimes be a problem when these big kings move in down there. Shark activity, well, obviously whalers just belting those bigger kings. So if you're going down there, put the big gear on and just try to get them up before the shark's happening. So live bait and jigging, definitely down south. Now I definitely know there's been a few really nice trag down on those perch grounds as well, as there have been some really nice snapper and trag on our part of the woods, out on that farm area, down towards that Catherine Hill Bay farm, around about that, 93 into around about 110 metres of water. There's some really nice patches of reef out there, but well worth having a look at. The tides, of course, for this weekend, 8:30 low on Saturday and a 3:15 high. A really good high tide for that late afternoon with that varying wind. So I think that'll be perfect. It's a good tide too. It's in and around about 1.7, and we're going to get those bigger tides moving through into next week as we go out of the last of the moon. So we're basically on the last of the full moon, and we're going to head into the dark cycle towards the new moon. And that is always a better time to fish. The inshore situation, a lot of reds, but there's a lot of mixture with the fish out here. And look, coastally at the moment, that water temperature is still hovering in off Newcastle, Swansea area, 19 degrees. And to my surprise, there's still quite a few bonito offshore. So the guys that are fishing floating baits for snapper, catching a lot of tailor, of course, some nice reds, trag, but getting bonito. And again, we're the middle of July, but it's just that water temperature just staying in there. I would have expected by now the offshore temperature to have dropped away, but it just hasn't. So that's meant that bit more diversity when we're fishing. And of course, this tide, that 3:15 tide Saturday, is going to be a cracker. So I think you're going to find a lot of reds as we start to move out of this last of the moon. Now beaches, they got chopped up a fair bit, as you can understand, but there's a lot of salmon coastally. All beaches have got salmon, I must say. There's the big odd tailer mixed in with them, but a lot of salmon. It's a good idea maybe to even have a look at the rocks. The water's still fairly soapy, so definitely drummer and ludric, and of course quite a few bream and trevally on those rock platforms. So again, looks pretty safe with that variety of, just not a lot of swell, not a lot of wind. I think it's ideal for rock fishing in those afternoon tides, perfect. Now last weekend, the fishing did back off, and the main reason was we went, full moon was on the Friday afternoon or Friday evening, and it just waned away. And that has been the case the last basically 4 days, maybe even 5 days. The fishing has dulled off in the lake itself. Some really good reports, salmon, tailor, and a few mulloway, particularly are in and around Pulborough Island, but the mulloway size has waned away as well. So we're getting reports now, a lot of mulloway in the system, 60s to 70s, opposed to those better fish that were well over a metre, which we had on the run into the full. I think this will improve going into this next new moon. You'll see a real improvement. Stayed with my good mate Steve Norris today. He's been out on the water as well, and he really backed that theory up. You know, a lot of small mulloway, but a lot of small flathead. He did lose one big fish, but a lot of fish in and around those, you know, high 50s, mid 60s and the odd 70. The bigger fish, those 80s and 90s, which we were talking about last weekend, have dropped away. But I just think fishing will start to improve this weekend. Hilly gave me a bit of a message there this afternoon as well. A lot of brim, but soon as that tide turned and run in, they started, moon come up, fishing just shut down. They just hated that moon. So we've just got to get the last of this moon, which is only another couple of nights away basically, and I reckon the fishing will improve. But some really nice brim. He said he got a couple over 40 as well, but a lot of smaller fish, those 30 pluses. So you're going to encounter that. And not a lot of salmon on the flats. However, there are still a lot of salmon in that Air Force Channel area and in that middle of the channel there, basically opposite Marine Rescue up to the airport. Not a lot of activity in Salts Bay, but there are a few brim and trevally there if you want to fish. And I think my suggestion would be try to fish the last of the run out tide there. You'll get some better options. Guys, all in all, it looks good. There's still enough time to even pop a few pots out there to get a few blue summer crabs, but a lot of salmon and tailor down in that southern end. I know there's been a few nice fish around that Rathmines area, but you're going to need to move around. I just think this weekend, probably a little bit more unpredictability, because you're going to need to work and just work a little bit harder estuary-wise. And I reckon offshore, I think with that 19-degree water temperature, Saturday afternoon in particular, I think you might be in for a win. Have a good weekend, guys, and I'll see you next week.